What's up guys, welcome back to Deck Tech for Decks. I'm your host Caleb. If you want to support me, you can now follow me on Patreon. Not only is it the best way to help out the channel, additionally, you'll get more say in what decks I cover. Special shout out to all of my high contributing patrons. Newsome, you rock. Additionally, you can use that TCGplayer link in the description down below, or as always, just liking, commenting, subscribing will do the trick to help out the channel. Now, let's get into today's Deck Tech with the 12th Doctor. And honestly guys, let me back up what I said in the thumbnail. I think this is probably going to be the best wheel commander we have at our disposal right now. And let me explain why. One, we're going to make this deck Grixis by making this guy our companion. Then all we need to do is cast something like a Liliana's Caress, cast a wheel with our commander out, use the demonstrate ability, and then we're going to get 3 wheel effects because that demonstrate ability is not a May. Our opponents have to copy that. Then we'll discard our hand, draw cards, discard, draw, discard. That's going to deal a total of over 40 damage to our opponents, 42 to be exact if everybody has 7 cards in their hand. And if they don't, we can just copy and demonstrate the Liliana's Caress and smash the opponent's face that we gave it to. So, you know, he dies first because now there's a Liliana's Caress on the other side of the field. You don't want to wheel 3 times into that. You'll die. So we smash his face so he dies on at least the second wheel. And then everybody else will die on the other 2 wheels because that's going to be over 80 damage to everybody. Assuming, again, everybody's discarding a full hand. That's going to be enough to, yeah, kill everybody. Another thing we can really abuse with this guy is rituals. Because having access to a ton of mana on not your turn doesn't do much for you. Imagine casting Jeska's Will at instant speed to discard or to exile some random cards and add a bunch of mana to your mana pool. Not as good as, you know, using it on your turn, right? So now you can have 2 Jeska's Will, exile the top 6 cards of your library, and get access to a ton of mana, and our opponent's going to get access to that mana and those cards as well, but again, it's not that great on their turn. Another thing we can really abuse with this guy is just straight up rituals. Using a ritual, again, like, I don't know, Dark Ritual gives you 6 mana and gives someone else just random 3 black mana to their mana pool. Sometimes that's not even going to be in their color combinations and they're going to be tapped out, so they can't even use that mana. There's a lot of ways to abuse this commander, and if you want to see them all, go ahead and tune in for the Deck Tech. Let's kick it off by talking about our wheel payoffs. We have Liliana's Caress, Migrim, Felspectre, and Bloodchief's Ascension. Notably, these are all going to damage our opponents whenever they discard cards. Bloodchief's Ascension can be especially good because we gain life. That way, whenever we do have to demonstrate and create a token copy of these, Bloodchief's Ascension will be able to cancel out our opponent's damage. Raider's Wake also fits into this category. We then have Cataract Parasites, Orcish Bowmaster, Nekusar, and Shieldred. Notably, Shieldred, another way we can gain life to kind of negate if we do have to demonstrate off of one of our discard effects. Another thing to note about these ones is it's on draw, it's not on discard. We also have other ways to benefit off of everybody discarding cards, such as Archfiend of Ifnir. This is just going to be a solid board wipe. Sangromancer is another amazing card to make it to where if we do have to demonstrate on something like a Liliana's Caress, the damage we're going to take from it is going to be mitigated by all of the life we gain. Waste Not is just an absurd card that generates a ton of value just by doing what the deck wants to do. Baylor is a kind of funny one. It can make one of our opponents draw a lot of cards, discard a lot of cards. It can deal damage to someone equal to the amount of cards in their hand, like our companion, and it'll make one opponent start sacking non-token artifacts. Molten Psyche is essentially a 3 mana you win the game card in this deck. It's very easy to force our opponents to draw a ton of cards, cast this for 3 mana, and just kill them. Let's talk about those wheel effects we're going to be casting. Burning Inquiry is going to be amazing. Imagine this 3 times. Everybody's going to draw a total of 9 cards and discard a total of 9 cards. That's going to be enough to kill some people with the right pieces on the board. Dark Deal, Windfall, Reforge the Soul, just solid wheel effects that's going to draw everybody into a fresh new grip. Windfall can be a lot better or a lot worse depending, and Dark Deal's always one less, so it's always just worse than Windfall, but we're still going to include it. Whispering Madness is one of the best cards in the deck, especially if we demonstrate on it, because we're going to do the whole wheel thing 3 times, and then our commander can attack and do the wheel thing 2 more times. That's going to kill everybody with any kind of outlet on the battlefield. Jace's Archivist, just a solid creature, sticks on the board. It's basically a windfall. Let's talk about other cards we want to be copying with our commander. Dark Ritual, Seething Song, these 2 are going to be amazing. One will net us 6 mana, the other one will net us up to 10. Notably, remember, you do want to give this to the player player that's tapped out, and if all possible, not in these color identities. A mono green player is going to be the perfect target. Mana Geyser is going to be amazing, just being able to generate, I don't know, something like 30 mana instead of the regular 15. We are obviously also running Jeska's Will. Remember, this card is going to generate a ton of mana, drawing us 6 cards deep, basically, and adding a ton of mana to our mana pool. I did want to mention we are running Chromatic Orrery as well. Now, we can't demonstrate on this because it's legendary, but this is just here so that when we get all of that ritual mana, we won't have to worry about, having access to blue or black colored mana to cast our spells that we need to cast. Now we can spend all that red mana as if it was any color, and that's going to be huge. Dissipation Field is kind of funny here. Now, you probably don't want to copy this, but I just put it in this category to demonstrate that we can take away the benefits from our opponents. Like, say we demonstrate on something like a Liliana's Caress. As soon as it deals damage to us, boom, it gets bounced back to their hand, but it's a token, so it's just going to not exist. Another clever way to do this is Narset's Reversal. Say we cast a Jeska's Will, we can easily spend 2 mana, bounce it back to their hand, which it'll cease to exist again, and we'll get 3 Jeska's Wills instead of just 2, basically getting all the value and they get nothing. Moving on, I found a pretty cool way to win the game using our Graveyard and Buried Alive. Now, you will want to demonstrate on this, throwing a total of 6 creatures into your graveyard. You're going to grab Keterek Parasite, Orcish Bowmaster, Jace's Archivist, Sheoldred the Apocalypse, Nekusar the Mindrazor, and Cyclops the Eternal Fury. Now, if you notice, it's in ascending order from 1 CMC to 6 CMC. We can now cast Agadeem's Awakening for a total of 9 mana, yes, 9 mana, bringing all 6 of those creatures onto the battlefield. Then all you need to do is pay 1 mana to activate your Jace's Archivist, and that's 100% going to kill all your opponents, because they're going to be taking 4 damage per card they draw, and you're going to get a ton of Orcish Bowmaster triggers. Notably, the Cyclops that gives all your creatures haste, not useless here because you can attack with your Orcish Bowmasters, all the cards we just reanimated, and your giant orc army. And if that's too convoluted to you, we do run Living Death. Living Death is a lot more flexible because you can just pitch 6 of your best creatures in the graveyard, so there's that, but it's not as cool. And I know you're asking, how the hell are we gonna get to 10 mana? All of those rituals, 10 mana is not that crazy in this deck. Another way to win the game utilizing that graveyard is Jeska's Will and Underworld Breach. One will feed mana, the other one will allow us to cast spells from our graveyard, and then all we need to do is keep casting our wheel effects like Reforge the Soul, Burning Inquiry, and as long as we have a payoff on the battlefield, we don't have to do that very much to kill all of our opponents. You can also use Mana Geyser and Reforge the Soul. Mana Geyser is going to net you way over 5 mana for that Reforge the Soul, and then Reforge the Soul is going to make it to where you constantly have cards in your graveyard to exile to your Underworld Breach. Don't forget, we can also use Windfall and Chromatic Orrery, because now whenever we're casting Jeska's Will, we can spend that red mana for blue mana. It's another way to keep your graveyard full of cards to exile while you're just wheeling. And remember, as long as you have a payoff on the battlefield, your opponents are dying while you're doing this. Moving on to the core of the deck, I did want to talk about our companion for a second because he's mostly just in the deck so we get access to black, but in a pinch, casting this guy can kill one of our opponents. It kind of turns into, hey, cast your hand or die. Swiftfoot Boots and Lightning Greaves, because let's be honest, our commander is kind of a lightning rod. I thought it'd be kind of cool to include cards like the TARDIS and Abaddon. This is just going to be free value. It's going to basically give all the cards in our hand Cascade. Now, the TARDIS only works once, but Abaddon is kind of evergreen. As long as we can wheel once, deal a ton of damage to our opponents, all of our cards are going to have Cascade for the rest of that turn. Notably too, our commander's pretty big, and so is Abaddon. So as long as we're attacking someone who's open, we can give all of our cards Cascade regardless. That's just free value. Neheb the Eternal, because we weren't generating enough mana already, this is going to synergize amazingly with our wheel effects. Echo of Eons is kind of in the deck as a last resort. You don't really want to cast this because we want to utilize our graveyard, but it can also be graveyard hate in some niche scenarios. Another thing that's pretty awesome about Echo of Eons is if we don't draw into something we need, we can easily cast it from our graveyard again. And we have a ton of payoffs that do deal damage whenever we draw cards. Reanimate and Animate Dead. We are wheeling a lot, so there's going to be a decent amount of creatures in our graveyard, so these are going to be solid options to get them back. Also, our our commander is pretty expensive, so if he dies, it's going to be better to reanimate him than try to recast him from the command zone. We do have a tutor package with Personal Tutor, Gamble, Mystic Tutor, and Vampiric Tutor. The only reason these are in the deck is because you honestly want to be playing this in highly tuned playgroups. This is not to take against, I don't know, someone's budget deck. This deck's tuned and it's made to kill people fast. Moving on to our interaction, we have our counterspell package with Swan Song, Arcane Denial, and an Offer You Can't Refuse. Deflecting SWAT is also going to make the list to protect our commander. Yahini's expertise and Baral's expertise are kind of broken with Cascade, while also giving us the option to bounce some stuff back to our opponents, preventing them from winning, while also still advancing our board state. Cyclonic Rift is going to be extremely broken in this deck. We cast it on our end step, everybody's going to end up with a huge amount of cards in their hand. Now picture having Liliana's Caress and a wheel in hand. Yeah, they're just going to die. All of our opponents are going to die if that scenario happens. Evacuation is kind of in the deck for a similar reason. You bounce everybody's creatures back to their hands on your opponent's end step, you untap, everybody's got a huge hand, and then you just wheel and kill everybody. Toxic Deluge, just a solid board wipe, and then Blasphemous Act, it's too efficient not to run. It will definitely stop those token strategies in their tracks. That's going to do it for the deck tech, guys. If you like this deck tech, go ahead and check out the War Doctor deck tech. This guy's equally busted. We can easily get 80 plus time counters on this guy and start one-shotting people, so go check that out. As always, guys, if you want to help out the channel, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. You can become a Patreon to get more say in what deck techs I cover. The last thing I'd like to do is shout out all my patrons. You guys are amazing. I couldn't do it without you. I appreciate every one of you. As always, I hope this helped you in your deck building endeavors, and I will see you in the next one.